I got fired for taking my first vacation in 8 years, and the weirdest part is how calm they were about it, like they'd been rehearsing the script for months. I'm not talking about a staycation where you answer Slack on the couch. I mean, I actually left town, put my laptop away, and trusted that the company I'd bled for wouldn't punish me for using the PTO I'd earned. I'm a guy who built his life around being dependable, not in the inspirational poster way, more like in the if I don't do it, it won't get done way. 8 years at the same mid-sized company. Operations and reporting, the unglamorous stuff that keeps the lights on. When people say we're a family, I'm usually the one rolling my eyes, but I still ended up acting like the oldest son who fixes everything. My first year there, I volunteered for too much because I wanted to prove myself. That turned into a reputation. I was the one who stayed late when a shipment got stuck, who jumped on calls when a client panicked, who rebuilt a dashboard at 11 p.m. because a VP wanted it in the morning. The raises were fine, the praise was cheap, and the workload kept expanding like gas in a sealed jar. Vacation was always later. We were short-staffed. Someone quit. Someone got sick. We were in a critical quarter. I told myself it was temporary. The truth is, I didn't want to be seen as replaceable. If I wasn't there, would they notice they didn't need me? That thought sits in your chest like a stone when your whole identity is being useful. By year 5, people didn't even ask if I could cover. They just assumed. My phone buzzed during dinners. I carried my laptop on weekends, just in case. My mom used to joke that my job was my girlfriend. I laughed with her, but it wasn't funny. Then this year, something in me just snapped quietly. Not a breakdown, more like a switch flipping. I woke up one Monday, stared at my calendar full of meetings I'd inherited, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a full week where my brain wasn't on call. I checked my PTO balance. It was absurd. Weeks and weeks banked because I never used it. So I did the scary thing. I requested 10 days off. Not during year end, not during the big annual audit, not overlapping anyone else's scheduled time. I even wrote a coverage plan like a project proposal. Who would handle what? Where the files were? What to do if certain alarms went off. I attached everything to the request, so no one could say, "We didn't know." My manager, Dave, replied in under an hour. "Looks good. Enjoy your time. You've earned it." Smiley face. That should have felt reassuring. Instead, it made my stomach tighten, because Dave didn't do quick approvals. Dave did slow control. Dave did let me think about it, and then asked you to compromise. HR chimed in too, which was unusual. A woman named Melissa, pleasant, always corporate neutral, sent me a short email. "Just confirming your PTO dates are approved in the system. Please ensure all handoffs are documented. Have a great vacation." It read like a form letter, but it wasn't one I'd ever gotten before. I told myself I was being paranoid. I printed the approval anyway and saved PDFs to my personal drive. It felt ridiculous, like taking screenshots before a breakup. But I'd watched enough coworkers get misunderstood on paper to know how fast reality gets rewritten when someone higher up needs it to. The week before I left, Dave started acting nicer. He dropped by my desk with coffee like we were friends. He told people in meetings, "We're fine while he's out," but he said it a little too loud, like he wanted the room to hear him say it. A coworker, Jenna, messaged me privately. "Hey, did you get everything in writing?" When I asked why, she just said, "Just do it." The Friday before my flight, I stayed late to clean up loose ends. I sent a final handoff email with bullet points, links, escalation contacts, and a line that said, "PTO approved by Dave and HR on date." I wasn't trying to be dramatic, I just wanted the record to exist. At 6:42 p.m., Dave replied all, "Thanks, we'll handle it from here." Nothing else. No, have fun. No, don't think about work. Just that. I drove home with my suitcase in the trunk and that message replaying in my head, like a door clicking shut behind me. At midnight, as I was double-checking my passport, My phone lit up with a calendar invite from HR. Check in. Scheduled for the morning after I was due back. No agenda, no notes, just a 30-minute block with Melissa and Dave. I stared at it for a long time, then set my phone face down and told myself the same lie I'd been living on for years. It's probably nothing. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, not excited, more like guilty. I kept reaching for my laptop out of habit, like if I didn't open it, the world would fall apart. I forced myself to do one last thing. I set an out-of-office message that was painfully clear. I will be offline and unreachable. For urgent issues, contact. I listed 3 names, 3 numbers, in the shared folder where every procedure lived. I hovered over the toggle for Slack notifications. My thumb actually shook a little. Then I turned them off. Not mute, off. At the airport, surrounded by families and businessmen and people who looked like they belonged to their own lives, I felt strangely exposed, like I'd stolen something. While I waited to board, I checked my email one final time, again out of reflex, and saw Dave had forwarded my handoff to a distribution list I'd never been on. The subject line was, "Coverage while he's out." Nothing in the body, just my bullet points pasted under it, stripped of the line about approvals. I told myself that was just Dave being Dave. I put the phone away, boarded the plane, and watched the cabin door close. For the first time in years, I wasn't available. The first 3 days of my vacation were quiet, in a way that felt unreal. I slept longer than my body knew how to handle. I woke up disoriented, reaching for a phone that wasn't vibrating. The constant background noise in my head, the mental checklist, the don't forget to follow up, was still there, but softer, like tinnitus fading. Then the messages started. Not emergencies, not outright violations of my out of office, just testing. A Slack message from a coworker asking where a file lived, even though the link was in the handoff. An email from Dave, copied to 2 people. Phrase like a favor. "If you happen to see this, quick clarification." I didn't respond. I told myself I'd earned this boundary. I reminded myself everything was documented. By day 4, the tone shifted. Dave emailed again, this time directly, no pleasantries. "Need confirmation you're available if issues arise." I reread it twice. My out of office was still active. HR had confirmed my dates. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my personal account and went back to what I was doing, trying not to feel like I was doing something wrong by existing outside my job. That night my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "Hey, it's Dave. Call me when you get this." No urgency stated. No context. Just expectation. I didn't call back. The next morning I woke up to a Slack notification. Somehow one had slipped through before I'd fully disabled everything. It was from a junior analyst. "Hey, HR asked if you were reachable. Is everything okay?" That was the first time my stomach actually dropped. I replied carefully from my phone, keeping it neutral. "I'm on approved PTO. Everything should be in the handoff. Why?" There was a pause. Then, "Oh, okay." No explanation. I spent the rest of that day distracted in a way I hadn't expected. Not anxious enough to ruin the trip, but aware, like when you feel a car drifting slightly out of its lane. Something was happening back home, and it involved me not being there. On day 7, Dave sent a calendar update. Not a meeting, an edit. The check-in with HR had been renamed. New title. Return to office discussion. Same time. Same attendees. I stared at it for a long time. I opened my email and searched my name. I searched my employee ID. I searched for words like coverage, availability, delay. Nothing obvious. No complaints, no warnings, no performance issues. My last review had been glowing. Critical contributor, institutional knowledge, go-to resource. I'd saved that too, back when it happened, without knowing why. That night, sitting on a balcony with the city humming below, I finally admitted something to myself I'd been avoiding. This wasn't about a missed message or a file location. This was about control, about what happens when the person who's always there isn't. And then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. The final 2 days of the trip were quieter, but not restful. I replayed conversations from the past year with new ears. The time Dave joked that if I ever left, the place would burn down. The way HR had once asked, casually, how many hours I worked off the clock. The comment from a director that my role was flexible, said like it was a compliment. On the flight home, I opened my laptop for the first time since leaving. Not to work, to prepare. I downloaded everything that was mine to access. Approvals, policies, my original PTO request, the confirmation email from HR. I checked timestamps. I took screenshots. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was pattern recognition. When I landed, my phone exploded. 3 missed calls from Dave. 2 from an HR extension. A Slack message waiting the moment I reconnected. Please confirm you'll attend the meeting this morning. I didn't respond right away. I went home, dropped my bag, showered, and put on the same clothes I'd worn to every important meeting for the past few years. The ones that said competent, neutral, unthreatening. Before leaving, I checked my email one more time. There was a new message from Melissa in HR. Subject line, attendance concern. It referenced unavailability during a critical operational period. It mentioned lack of responsiveness. It cited policy language about reliability. It did not mention my approved vacation. I sat down, read it again, and felt something solidify where the guilt used to live. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was clear. They weren't panicking because things had gone wrong while I was gone. They were panicking because the paper trail hadn't gone the way they expected. I closed the emails, picked up my keys, and headed to the office. The meeting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. Same as always. Same glass table. Same cheap notepads no one ever wrote on. Dave was already there when I walked in, sitting too straight, hands folded like he was bracing for impact. Melissa from HR sat beside him with a laptop open, a legal pad aligned perfectly with the table edge. She smiled when she saw me. It didn't reach her eyes. Thanks for coming in, she said. Have a seat. I didn't rush. I put my phone face down on the table, sat, and waited. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Melissa started. This meeting is about concerns that came up during your absence. Absence, not vacation, not PTO. Absence, she continued, calm and practiced. During a critical operational window, you were unreachable. Several time-sensitive issues required your input, and your manager was unable to get a response. I nodded slowly, like I was processing something new. Inside, I was already cataloging the language. Unreachable, required, unable. Dave finally spoke. We depend on you. And when you didn't respond, things slipped. That was interesting. Not broke, not failed, slipped. Melissa slid a printed document across the table. It was a policy excerpt about availability expectations for exempt employees. Highlighted. Carefully. No mention of PTO exemptions in the highlighted section, even though I knew they existed. This isn't disciplinary yet, she said, but it is serious. I looked at the paper, then back at her. Can you clarify something for me before we go further? She nodded. Are we discussing an unapproved absence? I asked. Or my approved PTO from the 3rd to the 14th? There it was, the first crack. Melissa glanced at her screen, just for half a second. Well, she said, choosing the word carefully, the concern is about responsiveness, not the approval itself. Dave jumped in. When you're the only one who knows certain systems, being unreachable creates risk. I kept my voice even, which is why I submitted a coverage plan, documented access points, escalation contacts, and sent a final handoff email, all of which you acknowledged. I didn't say it defensively. I said it like I was reminding him of something he already knew, Melissa typed something. Even so, she said, there were moments where clarification was needed. I leaned back, and those moments occurred while I was on approved PTO, correct? Another pause. This one longer. Yes, she said finally. Okay, I said. Then I'd like to understand how that becomes an attendance concern. Dave shifted in his chair. It's about expectations. Historically, you've always been available. There it was. The truth, finally said out loud. I felt something inside me detach. Not anger, not fear, just distance. So, I said, the expectation is availability, even during approved time off. Melissa smiled tightly. We expect flexibility. I nodded again. Then I'd like to formally request that HR pull the complete record. My PTO request, the written approvals, my out-of-office notice, the handoff documentation, and any internal notes made about my availability during that period. Dave frowned. Why? Because, I said, right now we're talking in generalities. I'd prefer we talk about specifics. Melissa hesitated. We already have the relevant information. I don't doubt that, I said. I'd still like the full record. Silence again. Dave looked at Melissa. Melissa looked at her screen. This may take some time, she said. That's fine. Dave exhaled sharply. Look, this doesn't have to get complicated. I met his eyes. It already is. That was the moment I stopped trying to be agreeable. Not aggressive, just done performing. Melissa closed her laptop slightly. In the meantime, she said, we're placing you on administrative leave while we review. I expected that. What I didn't expect was how relieved I felt hearing it. Paid? I asked. Yes, she said. Effective immediately. Please return your badge and laptop before you leave today. I slid my badge across the table. I'll need a receipt for that, I said, and written confirmation of the leave terms. She nodded, a little stiffly. Of course. Dave didn't say anything. He couldn't look at me now. As I stood to leave, Melissa added, We'll be in touch once we've completed the review. I paused at the door. One more thing, I said, turning back. Please include any changes made to my role status, access permissions, or internal notes during my PTO in that record pull. Dave's head snapped up. What changes? I didn't answer. I just held his gaze for a second longer than necessary, then left the room. In the hallway, my hands finally started to shake. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. I went straight to IT, turned in my laptop, got the receipt. I emailed Melissa from my phone, asking her to confirm everything in writing. She replied within minutes. Too fast. At home, I laid everything out on the table like evidence. Printouts, screenshots, emails, approvals. I opened my calendar history and noticed something I'd missed before. During my vacation, several meetings I normally owned had been reassigned, with notes attached. Notes time-stamped while I was gone. Notes questioning availability and coverage gaps. They hadn't just reacted to my absence. They'd been documenting it. That night, I slept for the first time since the meeting. Not well, but deeply. The kind of sleep where your brain finally accepts the truth it's been circling. I woke up knowing one thing for certain. I wasn't fighting to get my job back. I was fighting to make sure the record couldn't be rewritten. The next 5 days were chaos disguised as process. HR went quiet first. No follow-up, no we're reviewing, just silence. Dave, on the other hand, couldn't help himself. He emailed twice, short, clipped messages that said nothing and everything. Just checking in. Let us know if you need anything. Each one copied Melissa, like he was trying to look cooperative while leaving a trail. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I started doing something I'd never done while employed there. I reconstructed my own job from the outside. I logged into my personal backups and rebuilt timelines. What I touched, when, and why. I pulled old calendar exports showing after-hours meetings. I highlighted Slack timestamps that proved I'd responded at night, on weekends, during so-called vacation blackout periods. Not to brag, to establish pattern. Then I noticed something that made my chest go tight. During my PTO, my user role had been temporarily altered, not disabled, adjusted, certain approvals rerouted, certain dashboards reassigned. The change wasn't obvious unless you compared access logs side by side. It was subtle enough to pass as operational housekeeping. But the timing mattered. The change created the very gaps they'd complained about. I wrote it all down. Dates, times, screenshots. I didn't accuse. I described. On day 6, Melissa emailed. Subject, record review update. She attached a PDF. 37 pages. Policies. My PT request. The approval emails. My out of office. My handoff. And, buried halfway through, internal notes. The kind employees aren't supposed to see. Notes questioning my commitment. Notes suggesting my role might be too central. Notes recommending documentation of availability concerns while I was out. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. They hadn't just pulled records, they'd handed me the motive. I replied with a single sentence, "Thank you. Please confirm this is the complete record, including all internal notes and system access changes during my PTO." The response came 10 minutes later. Yes. That was the moment the ground shifted. I sent a longer email back, still calm, still factual. I outlined the access changes, attached my evidence, and asked one question at the end. Can you explain how an approved PTO becomes an attendance issue when system permissions were altered during that period? I CC'd one additional address, ethics and compliance, not as a threat, as a formality. After that, everything sped up. A meeting request hit my calendar within the hour. New attendees, someone from legal, someone 2 levels above Dave. The title was neutral to the point of absurdity. Clarification. In the meeting, Dave barely spoke. He looked smaller, like someone had let the air out of him. Melissa did most of the talking, carefully, slowly, as if every word had weight now. Legal asked questions that weren't really questions, more like confirmations. This change occurred on the 7th? This note was added on the 9th. This approval predates both? I answered when asked. I didn't editorialize. At one point, the director leaned forward. If this is accurate, he said, we have exposure. No one argued. The call ended abruptly, not with resolution, with next steps. That afternoon, I got another email. My administrative leave was being extended. Then another, please don't contact coworkers directly. Then another, all communication to go through HR. They were containing damage now, not managing me. Dave called that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that sounded rehearsed but cracked at the edges. I think wires got crossed. This escalated more than it needed to. I saved it. Didn't reply. 2 days later, Melissa called. Her tone was different, less polished, more careful. She talked about misalignment, about procedural errors, about moving forward. She didn't say Dave's name. Then she made an offer. Severance, back pay for the leave period, a neutral reference, reclassification of the termination as position eliminated, a non-disclosure agreement. I asked for time to review. When I hung up, I sat there longer than I needed to, not celebrating, not angry, just absorbing the strange quiet that comes after a storm when you realize the house is still standing. They thought this would end with me flustered, apologizing, trying to fix things. Instead, they were fixing them, and they weren't doing it for me. They were doing it because the record was finally louder than the story they wanted to tell. The offer sat in my inbox for a full day before I touched it. Not because I didn't understand it. I did. It was clean, deliberate, and carefully worded. Severance equal to several months. Back pay through the end of administrative leave. Benefits extended. A neutral reference confirmed in writing. Termination reclassified. No misconduct. No attendance issue. No cause. Just role eliminated during restructuring. The kind of phrase that ends conversations instead of starting them. What struck me most wasn't what was in the document. It was what wasn't. No apology. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No explanation. Just correction. That night, I took a long walk without my phone. No podcasts, no noise. Just the sound of my own steps and the strange sensation of not being needed anywhere. For years, that idea would have terrified me. Now it felt like air entering a room that had been sealed too long. The next morning, I reviewed the agreement with someone whose only job was to protect me. He didn't get emotional. He didn't ask for backstory. He read it like math. "This is solid," he said. "They're closing a door before it opens wider." I asked one question. "If I sign this, does it end cleanly?" He nodded. "For you, yes." That was enough. I sent back a short response accepting the terms, with 2 small revisions, language clarifying the reference and the exact wording of the separation reason. HR agreed within the hour. No pushback. No negotiation. Just compliance. Dave was removed from my reporting line before the paperwork was finalized. A week later, his internal title disappeared from the directory entirely. No announcement, no farewell email. The company didn't punish him publicly. They didn't need to. On my last official day, I received the final confirmation. Funds scheduled. Benefits outlined. Access permanently closed. Melissa sent a brief closing note thanking me for my contributions. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my laptop and sat there for a while, noticing how quiet my apartment was during the middle of a weekday. No notifications, no calendar reminders, no expectation that I should be somewhere else. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like neglect. It felt like peace. A month later, I took another vacation. Not because I needed to prove anything, because I wanted to. I went somewhere simple. I didn't tell anyone where. I didn't bring my laptop. I didn't check email just in case. Nothing fell apart. No one called. The world kept moving. What I learned wasn't that companies are cruel or that HR is evil. It was simpler than that. I'd mistaken usefulness for safety. I thought being indispensable made me untouchable. It made me convenient. The moment I stopped performing that role, the system tried to correct for it. Quietly, neatly, on paper. And the only reason it didn't work was because, for once, I'd kept my own record. Now, when people talk about loyalty at work, I don't argue. I don't warn them. I just listen. Because I know how this ends. Not with shouting, not with revenge, just with the truth finally written down, and no one able to erase it.